Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the showdown between the dinosaurs who shall be led by the red-crested skink chief who, believe it or not, is actually one of the most powerful duelists in the entire game. You put him up against Colette, Karl Franz, all these characters, as long as he has his warrior's crest, he's on his Stegodon and has the opal amulet as well, he can straight up go fisticuffs, which is pretty crazy considering how good the Stegodon is against infantry as well. So we're going to be going with the red-crested skink chief, and my opponent is going to be playing the Beastmen, who shall be led by Captain Dreadlocks or Morker the Shadowgave, and he's a pretty solid choice against the dinosaurs. He's very tough to snipe. Chaos Bond gave you a little bit of extra mass, some punching power against Saurus. I really like him as a lord pick. So as far as the army goes, again, it's going to be designed specifically against the Beastmen, and it's a build I've been using quite a bit, and it seems to be very strong. So of course, for the leadership kit, we do have the red-crested skink chief, and he's going to be backed up in the skies by the skink priest with the lore beasts. So Manticore Summons, even though they did get nerfed in the most recent patch, are still super good against Beastmen. You summon the Manticore, Beastmen have a ton of lightly armored lords and characters, so Morgr has 15 armor. The caster over here, the Braciaman, does have 80 armor, but nonetheless, the Manticore can still get in there and do some damage against him. And Beastmen are very susceptible against terror routing and mechanics like that, so having the Manticore is just so damn good, even though it does disappear fairly quickly. On top of that, we do have an Air Force, so we do have the, the Powhawks, the Sentinels, and the Pterodon Riders. So these guys are pretty much I wouldn't say a hard counter, but a pretty good counter against Centaurs. So if they have throwing axes, if they have Centaurs with great weapons, or just the shield variant, these guys have 90 range, they have good damage, they have poison, so they can stay out of range of the Centaurs, they can poke them the entire game. And also, their rock drops are really powerful. If you fly over the Koroks Man Rippers or Bestigors, which are pretty common in this matchup because they can do very well against dinosaur infantry, you drop rocks on their heads and it'll take them down to about 70%, which is extremely cost effective. So two of these bad boys up in the skies. We do also have the Ancient Salamander. So I don't like going too crazy with these guys, like getting like 2 or 3 of them. But having one Ancient Salamander, if you have ample resources to protect it, is extremely strong. He can do a ton of damage against infantry. He can fall back. He can shoot Minotaurs. He's very tough to catch with 75 speed. So most things aren't going to be able to catch him with the exception of Centaurs, which, you know, he can actually put up a fight against those guys. So the Ancient Salamander is really good. I think he's much better than the Hunting Pack. So the first volley coming in, getting some decent splash damage here on the best scores. You can see, yeah, it's not bad. Nothing to write home about, but not bad. Front line's going to be a combination of the Saurus and the Temple Guard. Temple Guard are super good against Beastmen. They beat their infantry. They beat their monsters. They're just so tough for the Beastmen to kill. And I honestly think that this is one of the hardest matchups for the Beastmen. So quite excited to see how this build my opponent does. So here in the back, we do have the Legion of Chaqua. The Legion is just a solid choice. They're good anti-large, good against Minotaurs, great combat stats with 51 melee defense. And if they do have a ton of Centaurs with throwing axes that are kind of circling around your lord, you are able to drop the buff here, which you guys can see. It does give 44% missile resist, so very, very powerful backline troop. And we're going to see how it goes. So for my opponent's force, he's got Captain Dreadlocks. He does have the Butchers of Kalkengard, a great armor-piercing large unit. He has a Gorbel as well, a Deathcaster, going to be dropping those Spirit Leeches. It can be pretty tough to take down the single entities. So having the Spirit Leech plus Minotaurs and some good focus fire, definitely very, very strong. For the front line, going to be a combination of best scores and chaff units, kind of pretty much the same as mine. Granted, Saurus, I would hesitate to call chaff. They're very, very powerful, actually. So yeah, he does have best scores, which can actually beat Saurus head-to-head, but against Temple Guard, I believe Temple Guard still win that fight pretty, not handily, but it's a good fight for sure, depending on how the buffs and magic use goes. So it's going to be a pretty infantry-heavy army. He does have the Butchers of Kalkengard, some more Minotaurs, not Minotaurs, but Bestigors over here. A couple groups of standard Centaurs, which are very good. A lot of players like to spam Hunting Packs because on paper they're very good against Beastmen, but if a Hunting Pack gets caught by Centaurs, even the standard variant, they have a really, really bad time. So I can see that going down. So on that note, guys, let's get this show on the road and see how this battle goes. So my opponent's forces are going to be advancing, and look at that, the Legion of Chaqua here. No, Powhawks and Sentinels. God damn it, they're all so confusing. So the Powhawks and Sentinels drop some serious rock damage here on the Koroks Man Rippers, taking them down about 11 models and a ton of HP damage, and we're going to be dropping some rocks here in the other group. So look at the value we're getting off these rock drops. Like, pre-patch, and oh, look at Gorbel just get punted by the Ancient Salamander. Gorbel came in and is like, you know what, I'm going to give you the business, Sally, but Sally was not having that shit and just punted him into the Shadow Realm, which is great. So the frontline fighting's underway. The skink cohorts are going to be throwing some javelins, I believe, but I think I have to actually fall back pretty quickly here. Into the back line, you can see the Powhawks and Sentinels now just going to be picking off Centaurs, and it's pretty good incremental value. You can see these Centaurs have already lost 2 models, and over the course of a long fight, it's going to be pretty good. Frontline fighting's underway. The skinks are going to be falling back, letting the heavy hitters pile in, so the Temple Guard are going to be fighting against the Butchers here, which is going to be a really good fight for me. These guys have anti-large, they have AP, not that you need, you know, much armor piercing against the Minotaurs here, but nonetheless, they're going to be pretty good against these guys. The red-crested skink chief is also a terror in the night. He's going to be able to bully these troops in the front line. He has insane combat stats when he pops his warrior's crest. He can also stop rampaging, which is very useful, so if there's a bunch of Saurus rampaging, you can pull them out, and he provides so much utility. In the meantime, we have fallen back with Ancient Salamander, going to be dropping some hot fire here in the front line against these Bestigors. And the Legion of Chaqua is just going to be falling back and making sure that these guys can't get on top of the Ancient Salamander for free. Some of these Centaurs do push through the back line, and, well, I guess they try to, and they're going to be getting on some of the Skink cores with Javelins, and it looks like a massive Soul Blight going down, which is going to be tagging all my troops, or actually that might be Doom and Darkness, not Soul Blight, which is going to be hurting my Temple Guard, putting their armor down to 55, but nonetheless, we've already pretty much bullied the front line. A lot of my opponent's elite troops took a ton of damage initially, right? We had the Koroks Man-Rippers, who were down to like 70% before the fighting even started, plus getting trampled by some big angry dinosaurs is certainly not the most fun situation for them. So if we take a big look at the battlefield, there are a couple spears coming up and around the back. The Powhawks of Sentinels going to keep dropping some spears on top of the Centaurs, and normally Centaurs are a little bit annoying for the Lizardmen to catch and deal with. But I'm telling you, Pterodon Riders are such a good answer, especially against Throwing Axes, which are pretty common against the Dinos. In the back, we're making a pretty big effort to protect Sally, and Sally's just going to keep shooting. It looks like my opponent is going to be dropping some Chaos Spawn right here, which is going to be doing some pretty good work against these Skink cohorts. Also, I do retaliate with a Flock of Doom here in the middle, but the Minotaurs are kind of running shop, and my opponent's doing a very good job overloading this flank. So now this massive herd of Beastmen is just going to be piling in. So we have Spears, we have Minotaurs, and I believe that the Butchers of Kalkengard are in okay shape. So Sally's in a little bit of trouble. Sally's going to have to turn and run, but that's what she's good at. She's got 75 speed. She's very, very fast here. Minotaurs are a little bit slower, especially when they're poisoned. Gorbel, I think, is, 65 speed. He's not going to be able to catch Sally. So at this point, I was like, okay, the battle's really, really close here. And he's allocating a lot of resources to chase Sally. Now, the Gorbels and the Minotaurs are what he needs to kill the Red-Crested Skink Chief or do damage against my Temple Guard and all this stuff in the middle. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run Sally and just straight up go Benny Hill. I'm going to run circles around the map. And if he wants to chase me with the Minotaurs, this is about 1,200 gold. Right here, this is about 2,500, 2,700. So anytime you can get your opponent to commit more resources to something like this, that's very, very good. But it looks like he might be pulling back with the Minotaurs. I'm not quite sure how it goes. But even if he chases with Gorbel, I'd say it's a little bit of a win for me. So in the middle, you can see that Morka the Shadowgave and his Dreadlocks are going to be battling these Temple Guard here. It's quite a fierce pit fight. His Chaos Spawn also do pile in, but Temple Guard might as well be unbreakable. These guys do not break easily, even if they're fully surrounded. They pretty much fight to the last man. Now that Captain Dreadlocks is alone, the Gorbel is chasing Sally off the edge of the map, or trying to here. I'm just going to be getting the Red-Crested Skink Chief and just going in on Morker. He is infantry sized, of course, so the bonus versus infantry on the Red-Crested Skink Chief is going to help. I do pop the Focus Instincts to de-rampage some of the Saurs nearby, who I believe were rampaging. We also get a nice little route here on the Koroks Man-Rippers. That extra damage from the Rock Drop in the beginning, just so damn powerful. But the bounce is pretty even. We do summon a Manticore right here, so that is going to be the second Manticore summon. The first one did dissipate as per the new summoning rules. And the Morker the Shadowgave here is going to be battling the Manticore, which isn't a great situation for him. And the Red-Crested Skink Chief is going to be coming in with the Steel Tusks and getting some huge damage on Morker. Just an absolute monster of a duelist. On top of that, just so good against infantry. I really think the Red-Crested Skink Chief is probably one of the best new Lizardmen lords. Like, why bring Krokar? You can bring this guy. He's really good against large targets if you pop his buffs, and on top of that, he's super good against infantry. Big HP pool, he definitely gets the work done. So Morker's pretty beat up here. We're going to be chasing him with the Manticore, but you can't really rely on the Manticore to chase him off because he is going to be disappearing. As such, I do grab the Skink Priest with the Lore of Beasts, and I'm going to make sure to get him off the battlefield because Captain Dreadlocks can heal, and that's the reason why the bounce power is in my favor at this point. We were able to get him. And in the meantime, Sally's doing a great job. Sally's just kind of scurrying here. You can see she's going to be taking the long road, and the Gorbel is trying. I mean, but the Gorbel's quite a bit slower, 10 speed against, or 65 against 75, so a 10 speed advantage here for the Ancient Salamander. Though my opponent is going to be grabbing these Centaurs, and the Centaurs are going to be chasing off Saurus and probably collapsing here on the Ancient Salamander, which you might be able to catch me and beat down the Salamander, which would be a little bit tragic. Anytime you see like Lizardmen characters like going down, it's kind of like, especially Skinks, it's like watching the Ewoks in the last Star Wars movie just die. It's super sad. Anyways, here you can see the Red-Crested Skink Chief going to be bullying through the infantry. He's got his machine gun ballista here, just going to pound town on some of these troops. Vestigore herds are in a little bit of trouble. I have a pretty mean Death Star. Granted, the bounce power is actually coming back towards the middle a little bit. I'm not sure why, but I think a lot of the Beastmen troops are rallying here. The Butchers of Kalkengard came back. Centaurs over here are, I'm not sure what they're doing. I think they were chasing the Powhawks of Sentinels. Yeah, because I was chasing the Deathcaster off. And that's another reason why Pterodon Riders are so good. You can just chase enemy troops off the battlefield. Once you get a little bit of skirmishing damage, you drop the rocks, you just use them as kind of a vulture unit. And they might be able to actually beat the Centaurs here. It's going to be a bit of a fight here in the forest, so we'll see how that goes. Over here, the Salamander is getting hunted, but Sally, like I said, pretty quick, and she does cause terror, so I could potentially terror out off these Centaurs. They are quite a bit faster, but if you just keep force pathing and just spam clicking, you should be able to get away. So the Ancient Salamander going to be hightailing it and running from the Gorbel and company here. And back in the main fight, we just have this nasty Death Star. We have the Temple Guard, we have the Legion of Chaqua, 2 Temple Guard actually, who are in okay health. Red-Crested Skink Chief's in pretty good shape. We also have some Pterodon Riders who are very good for cleanup, and also Pterodon Riders pretty good for triggering the rear charge penalty. So you fly up in the air, you charge into the back of enemy troops, especially low leadership ones, and you're going to be able to shrek them pretty bad with that -14. So the Death Star is going to be colliding here. You can see that the, I guess, yeah, Chaos is kind of like the eternal foe of the Lizardmen. Oh man, this guy got some hops. Look at him go. So he's going to be coming down with his halberd, doing the overhand chop into nothing right here. Looks like he's just a little bit excited. And the Red Crested Skink Chief is going to be piling in and just running over these Bestigors. The Beastmen, unless they really consolidate their forces, are not going to be able to really stand up to the Death Star, I don't think. So he's got some Ungor Spears here. The Butchers of Kalkengard are in okay shape. But at this point, I was trying my best to get Sally back to the main line, because if Sally's able to just stand with these troops, it's another terror-causing unit. The Gorbel is pretty healthy, and I think that's one of the main reasons why the Balance of Power isn't completely lopsided right now. But with all the Temple Guard plus the Red Crested Skink Chief, and the Warrior's Crest has been popped, so he's ready to fight. He's putting on that war paint, and he's going to be going balls deep in some of these Beastmen right here. So Morker, the Shadowgave, is still in the battlefield, still healing up a little bit. You can actually see he's gotten some healing since he did, yeah, I think he healed about like 300-400 HP. But the Skink Priest is hot on his tail, going to be making sure he doesn't come back, and from there, you know, he should be off the battlefield. But if he did come back, though, it could be a little bit of an issue, right? He can pull back the Gorbel, pull back the Minotaurs, make sure to heal as much as possible with those guys, because they do have regeneration, and from there, you know, it actually could be a little bit of a scary situation, as my forces are getting a little bit beat up. Granted, the Legion of Chaqua is going to be quite good against the Gorbel here, and you can see the Gorbel actually has gotten some damage in against the Red Crested Skink Chief, so still going to be trying to fall back here. Some of the Bestigors are going to be shattering as they do re-engage against some very, very scary units. And the Butchers of Kalkengard down to 5 models are just going to be getting prison shanked by all of these angry dinosaurs. So they're going to be coming in anti-large everywhere from the Legion as well as the Temple Guard. And yeah, they're going to be getting pushed out of the battlefield pretty hard. And the Red Crested Skink Chief has plenty of protection against just the Gorbel. It might be a little bit scary since my buffs are on cooldown, but even still, you can see the Gorbel has taken a lot of damage. The Salamander is actually not a terrible duelist in melee, and Salamander's also quite good at chasing things off the battlefield, so could potentially just chase off a high value unit. Fire damage is good against regeneration. Ancient Salamanders, I always recommend bringing at least 1 against the Beastmen. 2 is a little bit tough to protect, but I think just bringing 1 is a pretty good choice. So the Gorbel here getting punted again, just adding insult or assault to the wound here, but the Gorbel is going to be in mortal combat here against the Red Crested Skink Chief. And that's going to be all she wrote for the Beastmen. So well played to my opponent. It's a very hard matchup for the Beastmen, I think. Just kind of playing it a couple times. I've been grabbing, high-level players for the past couple days and just trying this matchup out. And I find that it's super hard for the Beastmen to win. I think it's possible for sure, and maybe we'll do some theory crafting on that. But this build feels pretty good. I mean, you have answers against Minotaurs and Bestigors. You have answers against Centaurs here, especially Ancient Salamanders can shoot at them too. It's very tough to crack. Now, I think that going with some sort of maybe a Cygor build, not like a ton of Cygor, but just getting the Eye of Morsleep and trying to pull the dinosaurs apart, getting a bunch of Centaurs with throwing axes, maybe get some Harpies to chase down the Pterodon Riders. I think that stuff could be really, really scary for sure. And just kind of pulling them apart and picking them apart with your superior mobility, because Beastmen are a much faster faction than dinosaurs, but trying to take them in a head-up fight with Bestigors and Koroks Man-Rippers is not going to go well. It's usually going to go very bad in my opinion. Granted, I don't know, if you guys have a replay of it going differently against, of course, someone of equal skill, please let me know. I'd be very interested to see that, but I feel like it's a very, very tough matchup for the Beastmen. So on that note, let's go ahead and take a look at a Beastmen build that I think could be okay. And again, well played to my opponent, XMT, El Halcone or Halcone. My apologies for that. I got to ask him again how to say that properly. So let's go ahead and take a look at that build, and we'll see you guys soon. All right, so we're jumping out here. Got a bunch of dinosaur games. I know you guys were very curious about seeing a lot more dino play on the channel. I was very heavily favoring Skaven for a while. So we're going to be playing a ton of dinosaurs. All right, so let's do this. And it doesn't matter. You guys can jump into the game now. All right, so you're playing the Beastmen against the dinosaurs. It's a tough one. So let's go ahead and find the Beastmen here. They're down here. And I think Captain Dreadlocks is the way to go. The Chaos Spawn are really good. He is relatively tough to snipe. I mean, he lasts longer than other Beastmen Lords would for sure. Kazrak is just not going to be useful. The Chaos Spawn are just a very, very valuable tool. So from here, I think getting a couple Centaurs with great weapons. I mean, the shielded variant is going to be pretty good, but if they do have like an Ancient Salamander, it's good to have some AP. So having those guys is going to be good. I'd also recommend a couple Harpies up in the sky. So 2 Harpies is probably going to be enough. I mean, if they go with like Ripperdactyls and things like that, it's going to be a little bit scary. But Colossadon Hunters against Beastmen, I don't think you're going to see it too often. We're going to get the Eye of Morsleep as well. And on top of that, we do need a Cygor Summoner. So we're going to get a Wildcaster. Wildcaster can just be on foot. And as far as the spells, we can get the Cygor Summon, plus we can get Devolve. Devolve is okay against like hordes of like infantry and stuff like that. Jagged Dagger, so we're going to have the 2 Eye of Morsleeps. They're just going to be pounding Temple Guard. You're not going to take a straight up fight. As far as your infantry, it's going to be pretty pathetic. You're just going to have a couple Ungor Spearman herds. You're going to have like 4 of those guys just kind of holding it down. And from here, we want to get a couple Throwing Axes. Throwing Axes, of course, very good against the big dinos. And hopefully the Harpies can deal with the bigger threats. Not bigger threats, but some of the threats up in the skies. Maybe it's even worth going 3 there and getting these Centaurs with Throwing Axes. So we have the great weapons. they're going to be decent. We might want to get a couple, like, or at least a standard Centaur right here, and then some Poison Hounds. These guys can be on, like, anti-skink duty, just chasing down the skinks, and we can just get some abilities here. We can just get Call of Violence. It's not going to be super useful. So basically, you spread out your Ungor Spearman herds across the map. You have the Centaur and the Poison Hound hunting down skinks and Salamander hunting packs and ancient salamanders. You have the great weapons to try and do the same thing, just put, again, a little bit more punch on these guys against some of the armor. Centaurs with throwing axes, once the skies are freed up from the pterodactyls, you have the Centaurs with throwing axes to kind of pick apart the Temple Guard plus the big dinos. You have the Eye of Morsleep, and I don't know, I kind of want to mix in some Minotaurs here, so maybe we cut you, and then we get the, oh man, they're so expensive. They're so expensive. Primal Surge isn't going to be useful because we're not going to be casting a lot. But I would like to have at least another spell here, so we could just cut you and just get like a cheaper one. Yeah, something like this could be pretty good. I mean, basically we just have to make enough to, we could even switch to normal Poison Hounds. But yeah, something like this I think is in the right ballpark. So again, well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Beastmen versus Lizardmen game. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.